All right, this is the call to order for the July 23rd, 2026 meeting of the Santa Clara County Planning Commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Brio?
Here. Did that work?
That works, thank you. Bring the mic down. Thank you.
Testing, 1, 2.
Present, Commissioner Hatterley?
Here.
Commissioner Cohen?
Here.
Commissioner Belska is absent. Commissioner Levy?
Present.
Chairperson Rouser?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Please stand if you're able to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening to the packed house. My name is Mark Rouser. I'm chair of the Planning Commission. On behalf of the commission, welcome to today's meeting. At this time, please turn off or mute all electronic devices, including cell phones that may interrupt the meeting. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Do we have anybody?
We have no requests to speak.
Then I want to explain it. All right. Before we get to the consent calendar, I would like to just briefly welcome our newest member, Commissioner Brio. Would you like to say a sentence or two about yourself and introduce yourself?
Sure. One sentence, that's hard.
Make it as many as you want. We have plenty of time.
I'll be brief. So, I retired from the planning profession about 2 years ago. I retired as the deputy director of overseeing long-range planning for the city of San Jose. And now I'm a stay-at-home dad and doing lots of other things too, but I won't get into that. So, but I have a long history of working in San Jose. My whole career was in San Jose. I've worked a lot with county staff on various things. Relevant to tonight, I was on the committee at ABAG that developed the methodology for the allocation of housing units, which created quite a pickle for the county, and I and staff at the county were opposed to that piece of the methodology, but we were overridden on that and didn't prevail, so that's why the county has 3,000 plus units as opposed to 270 something. And then I also oversaw the housing element for the city of San Jose. But yeah, I live down the street, so I think that's enough. And Bob and I have worked together for a long time when I was at San Jose. And Anastasia and we used to work together at San Jose. So yeah, that's it.
Well, great to have you.
Thanks.
We do have a rather full workload coming up in the next couple of years. So, number 4 is consent calendar. Does anyone want to change anything on the schedule? There's nothing on the consent calendar. We're good? Okay. Do we have any public comment on consent calendar?
No requests to speak.
Nailed it. Okay. Next item is number 5. Receive report from Department of Planning and Development relating to the Regional Housing Needs Allocation and California Department of Housing and Community Development reporting requirements regarding the housing element update 2023 to 2031.
Thank you. Principal Planner Samuel Gutierrez, on behalf of the Department of Planning and Development, I will be going through this presentation for the Planning Commission. So again, this report back to the Planning Commission is on the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, also known as RHNA, and the Housing Element Reporting Requirements. So just to provide some background on the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, again, commonly referred to as RHNA. Since 1969, California has required every city, town, and county to plan for housing needs for all residents of all income levels. The state determines how many homes each region must accommodate through the RHNA allocation process, and based on overall affordable housing needs identified by the Department of Housing and Community Development, commonly known as HCD. In the Bay Area, the Bay Area Association of Governments, also known as ABAG, creates the methodology for distribution of the housing numbers to local jurisdictions within the Bay Area.
Just for the record, Commissioner Belska has joined us.
Thank you. So continuing on the background on the RENA allocation, city and counties must update their housing element to identify new housing that can be built and establish policies to meet the assigned housing target for the 2023 to 2031 cycle. That's the current cycle that we're in. Through this process, the county was assigned a RENA target of 3,125 housing units for the unincorporated areas of the county for the current cycle. And here, to expand on that, within the total 3,125 unit target that we've been assigned through our RENA, there is a distribution of income levels that's displayed here in this chart. We also do need to meet the target for those specific income levels in addition to just the overall target of housing units produced in the county. In addition to this and how the county would meet these numbers, as mentioned earlier, the county would need to plan for this RENA target. And the way that that is done is through the identification of specific housing inventory locations in the unincorporated areas where future housing could be built to meet that target. The county, through the housing element, analyzed and found that the most appropriate locations would be the unincorporated areas of San Jose and Stanford University. Through the housing site inventory selection process and the housing element adoption process, this created policies and codes that enabled streamlining for projects that are located on the housing inventory sites. And there's CEQA coverage for those projects when they're located on the housing inventory sites if they meet the requirements of the housing element and the zoning ordinance that's associated with those housing inventory sites. And to go through that shortly here, you could see the locations. These are all identified in our housing element. There's sites in the Alum Rock unincorporated area of the county near San Jose where there are services. And as we continue through here, there's Escondido Village. That is one of the Stanford University sites there on the left, and on the right, you can see there's some sites located near the Valley Medical Center in the unincorporated county. You continue, there's a Hostetter location site in the unincorporated area of San Jose, and then there's additional sites located in the Parkmore, Burbank unincorporated area of the county near San Jose. And again, continuing on the unincorporated site near the Pleasant Hills Golf Course, and then there's additional unincorporated locations on the Stanford University campus across from the Palo Alto jurisdiction and Stanford Shopping Center located on Stanford University here on the right. Continuing, the county must implement all of its policies and programs in the housing element to generate enough housing to meet the RENA target. Again, our current cycle, 2023-2021, our housing element was certified on February 5th, 2025. And with that certification, the county now is obligated to implement 68 programs and activities. I provided a breakdown here of the distribution of those programs because they don't all lie with the Department of Planning and Development. As you can see, there's 33 programs with the Office of Supportive Housing, also known as OSH, 30 with the Department of Planning and Development, 3 with the County Executive's Office, and 2 with Behavioral Health Services. These programs range in what they are. For example, for the Department of Planning and Development, we have programs that might be looking to implement streamlining of our zoning code and permitting processes to foster housing development in the private sector, whereas OSH has programs for grant funding, affordable housing through their purview at the county. Continuing to provide a snippet of what the department is focused on currently as part of our implementation of our housing element, we're looking to streamline the ANLIU processing, tracking ordinance compliance with state law via updates to our ADU SB 9 ordinance that currently exists in our county code of ordinances, along with the looking at new ordinance sections that would comply with SB 648 and 1123. We're also looking at creating objective standards for multifamily housing. Again, that would streamline housing production is the objective there. And then we do have the upcoming mid-cycle review for the housing element progress. Where are we at? And how far are we from fully implementing the housing element? That would be starting next year. But we are focused on starting that process early. And then finally, there is another program that we're working in collaboration with the Office of Supportive Housing to apply for a pro-housing designation for our jurisdiction here, the unincorporated county, which would actually open up future opportunities for grant funding for affordable housing. So continuing on, as a part of the implementation process of the housing element and meeting your RENA allocation, all jurisdictions are required to submit their annual progress reports by April of the year in order to for HCD to review and track the jurisdiction's progress towards the RENA target and housing element implementation. The department submitted its 2025 annual progress report to HCD in April, and soon to submit a voluntary resubmission of that APR to incorporate the ABAG 30-30-30-10 ADU affordability formula. HCD approved a methodology that distributes ADUs more accurately across the various income levels. The revised APR would go to the Board of Supervisors before being resubmitted to HCD. And to show the current progress of RENA credit that the county has received, this is a table that includes the previous years where we submitted the APR and we received credit for building permits issued. That is how a jurisdiction receives credit towards its RENA. It's solely on how many building permits are issued for X number of housing units, and here you could see that it provided the previous years along with the projected amended data that I just referred to incorporate the ADU 30-30-30-10 methodology for that income distribution. And then we have tracked some of the data as of June 5th that we're currently tracking and as a department for our progress, which shows that we have 77 housing units that receive building permit issuance. In all, if you look at this projection, currently we're at approximately 600 units counted towards our RENA. Related to our housing tracking goals and RENA, I do want to mention that we do have builder's remedy housing applications. The county currently has 29 applications for housing projects associated with builder's remedy. One project already came before the PC and was approved on April 2026 or 23rd, 2026. This was the 3193 McKee with 10 units. I should note that they have already submitted for building permits or are in plan check now. And something related to what I discussed earlier with our housing inventory sites, none of the builder's remedy projects are located in any of those locations. They are predominantly in the unincorporated rural areas of the county. And just to show that graphically here, there's a map that shows all of the current builder's remedy projects throughout the county. And you could see the yellow triangles are actually the housing inventory sites that are identified in our housing element. And very clear, you could see while there's 2 projects that are close to some of those, the vast majority of the projects are located quite far from where we studied and allocated for housing growth in the county. And that concludes staff's presentation. I'm available for any questions.
I had a couple of questions on the slide that showed our progress. You had 402 units allocated to previous years, 2022 to 2024.
Yes.
Can you unpack that a little bit? What is that referring to?
So what I'm referring to is the previous years that we submitted an APR for, to make the table just fit on the report. Had to truncate that and lump them together. So that's a combination of when we started the tracking in 22. That's when the credit started.
Okay.
And then it continues to 23 and 24.
Okay,
So-
even though
The cycle.
the cycle goes through 20, I mean, you turned it in at 23, but
Correct. It started in, I can't recall the exact date. I believe it was June of 22.
right.
And then that's when the unit counts started counting. So then that would have been turned in 2023 for that half of 22.
Got it.
And then continues. Yes.
Okay. And then I'll just state the obvious, the SB 330 projects that are approved, they count towards our permit count. even
If
though
they
weren't
receive building
identified.
permit
Right.
issuance, then they would count. Projects that are approved in entitlement, whether they're an SB 330 or any other entitlement project, they would not count towards the RENA count, but we do report them in the APR. There are columns that all jurisdictions have to fill out for projects that are in entitlement processing and have received entitlement approval. Similarly, we do include data for how many housing units are in building permit processing versus how many actually received approval. We have to provide specific dates when the permits were issued. And through that process, HCD tallies how many projects are in the pipeline and then how many projects are issued permits for approval. Because they take all of that into account as they
Right.
see progress.
Right. On this, there's 2 properties in Stanford.
There's 2 locations near the Stanford Shopping Center. It's on Quarry and El Camino, near that
Right.
area.
But they're not related in any way to the Stanford GUP. Is there any,
If I may, through the chair, those are inventory sites that he was showing you.
Right.
We're not speaking to an application being submitted by Stanford. Those were inventory sites that the county identified. That has nothing to do with the Stanford application. That has not been submitted to date.
that's all I'm asking, is that related at all to the GUP if they decide to develop those, or is it?
At this point, we don't know because we don't have an application in. What he was reflecting was those were the inventory sites we identified. We can't say yes or no because we don't have an application. We don't know what they're submitting yet. Stanford.
Okay, another way of saying that is, if they were to develop those, would they be allowed under the current GUP that's there, or would that
Yes,
push them
that
over
was
the
already
limits?
accounted for under the current GUP.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at, if we have to wait for the whole GUP thing to get, if they were to decide to do that. And then the last question that I have at this point is, just tell me a little bit about the pro-housing designation. Does that seem like it's a pretty high hurdle, or is that something that we should do, could do, and it'll get us some, like you're saying, some grants?
It doesn't guarantee the grants. What it does is it allows you to qualify for submission to request the grant funding.
Right.
To apply, essentially. It requires a number of factors and programs that are already implemented at a jurisdiction to qualify. There is a point system, and they do rank and weigh different qualifiers or criteria ultimately in that application. And if you meet the number, then you do get designated as a pro-housing jurisdiction. We are submitting, and typically when people submit, or excuse me, when jurisdictions submit, there might be a back and forth with the state
Right.
on the submittal, because we do, it's a bit of a quantitative and qualitative process. So they may ask for more details on a particular criteria that we feel that we meet, and then we have to revise the application and resubmit. But I think ultimately we could achieve it. It does appear, based on our projection, that we would meet the minimum weighted point factor to receive it.
Okay. All right. I don't know who was first, so we'll just work our way back. Commissioner Hedderly?
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. First was, I would love to know do you have a sense of the pipeline potential for those housing inventory sites that you've identified? Have you been in conversations with property owners? Are you hearing anything about projects being perhaps in the works or interest in
We've had
developing?
some interest. Some folks have come and asked us questions about developing on different properties, yes. We had an application, but it was withdrawn. So, we're waiting for developers to submit on those different sites.
Okay, and when you identified the sites, was there conversation with the property owners at that point? I'm just trying to compare to my city's housing element. Was there an expectation when you added them to the inventory in the county's housing element? Did you have an indication that there was any likelihood of development on that site, or were they identified by where a project could happen?
We did do outreach, but I wasn't a part of that process. It was prior to my time with it, but I'm not sure if our director.
If I may, through
knows
the
the
chair,
greater
there were
detail.
conversations with property owners. There were no guarantees from the property owner that they were submitting applications, but we did have conversations with those property owners before that list was published.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how are you feeling about how things are coming along? Is this exceeding your expectations, underperforming in terms of what you thought the uptake might be for those inventory sites?
If I may, I would say it's too early for us to tell right now, and that would not be a statement we would want to make. I just want to be really clear.
Yes. My second question was about the objective design standards. I understand you're going to be working on those through the end of this year. What is the public process for that? Will there be a comment period? When do you expect it might come to us? Will it be just once? What does that look like?
Well, currently we have that under development. We're just looking at that program with a consultant that we hired to assist us in developing the standards. And then later we would go through public process, but we also have a deadline where we have to implement some of these streamlining. So we do want to be mindful of that as well. That we do want to involve the public. There is a balance to how many public hearings we may have before we ultimately recommend a set of ordinances to achieve that program. So that would probably be in approximately, if I recall correctly, in the housing element, our target is spring of next year to get that done.
And when you say done, you mean ready to share with the public or ready for
Approved.
approval? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Commissioner Cohen?
Thank you so much. I would just had a clarifying question. When we talk about the numbers around the RENA goals or the 600 building permits issued, and then in the document with the specific projects with the status, Does it tell us anywhere, like, how many units have been built and how many people we've housed and occupied over that period of time? I'm just trying to understand the difference between approving permits as a way to, like, start to achieve our goal, and then the urgent need to have housing for people, and just where does that story or information show up here?
It's not a part of the tracking when we submit to HCD, but if I recall correctly, the HCD does have a quantified number of assumed people that would be in a housing unit, because you never know how many people will live in a particular housing unit. It's very difficult to solidly say that, you know, whether you might have 4 people in a studio just because of circumstance, or you might have 1 person in a 4-bedroom house because of another circumstance. So it's a little difficult to track total number of people.
I guess maybe a different way of asking the question is there a time annually that we get information about how many number of units were just built, not permitted? I'm just trying to understand, like, when do we know that
I'm
we've
sorry.
met, like, a goal?
So building permit issued is the way that we receive credit. That is just the state standard for the credit. But what you're asking for, Commissioner Cohen, is, well, how many do we know actually got built?
Yes.
So we would see that internally by understanding when final occupancy was issued.
Correct.
That would be different.
And does that come to us as a report? And so I guess, yeah, when do we know how we're accomplishing that metric, or when does that come to us as a commission?
So presumably that would follow the exact amount that permits were issued, but we don't actually report on that number.
Because someone could pull permits for a lot of things and then never build it, right?
Correct. There's many reasons why that may not happen. They could
Okay.
be in the middle of a project, they're waiting on materials, financing does collapse or needs to be resolved, or they simply want to build something else. I mean, many things happen.
Maybe at some point it would be helpful to understand, like, on an annual basis, what that number is. I think also because it's important for the county to be able to talk about how we're delivering for our own contributions, but just to understand the difference between when someone pulls a permit and then something is complete. Thank you.
And if I could add to that, it maybe as a courtesy, if you could just send us a copy of the annual report that goes, yeah, I think that'd be helpful. Commissioner Belska.
Yeah, thank you. I definitely agree with Commissioner Cohen, and I think even if it's not part of the HCD report, I think it would be very useful for the commission to know the number of occupancy permits issued annually. So my question is, do you have any update on Pleasant Hills and San Jose potentially taking over that project? I know that was in discussion last year. I'm just curious whatever happened.
If I may, through the chair, it's our understanding that the developer has submitted the application to San Jose. So you might want to access their website to see the status of it, but they have withdrawn their application from this county and the processing, and it's being processed at the city of San Jose. That's what we know, and if you would like more information, you would need to contact the city of San Jose.
Is there an annexation process happening?
That has not been initiated that we're aware of right now, but it is a very interesting process if the city of San Jose chooses to annex that property in. They do not have to ask permission from the county of Santa Clara, but they would notify us. So you might want to, again, access their website to understand where that's at.
They need permission from LAFCO. Right.
I'll yield to council to speak to the annexation process outside of our authority.
All right, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah. Do you remember how many units there are in the Pleasant Hill proposal?
That was on, I think, Can you
No.
bring up the?
That's not the number of units. That's what we assessed could be built.
Right.
When we,
That's what I was asking.
when we identified the inventory sites. That's not a directive to a developer that they have to build that number. That's what we assessed could be built
Okay.
on
yes.
that site.
Great, thank you very much. And the mid-cycle review is scheduled for December of this year, correct? Is that when it is?
It starts next year.
Mid-cycle is next year.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're getting close at this point in time since it started in '22 and seeing 600 units built out of the 3,000. There is a little bit of a red flag there. Let's see what happens with Pleasant Hills and Stanford and so forth. But it does sound like, from just a numbers perspective, we are falling a little bit behind. Something I found really interesting about the reviewing the housing element was how much of these programs are not benefiting Santa Clara, the county's RENA numbers at all. Do we have any idea how many houses our programs are building in other jurisdictions? Because of all these, whatever, 68 different programs that are going on, the majority of them are with other cities, San Jose, Cupertino, Santa Clara, et cetera, and promoting that kind of development in their cities. Do we have any idea how many units are getting built in other cities as a result of the efforts that we're doing in the county?
I wouldn't know that information exactly, no.
Yeah, because it does seem that a tremendous amount of the effort in the housing element is focused on assisting other jurisdictions in developing as well.
If I may, through the chair, if you would like the Office of Supportive Housing to come and speak to that, that was also a question that I think Commissioner Cohen has raised about how we're how we're fulfilling housing with, for our residents as well. That's not happening in the Planning and Development Department. We partner with the Office of Supportive Housing, but Office of Supportive Housing is the agency within the county that houses the unhoused and that tracks those units and that works with other cities as far as developing housing.
Okay.
Chair, I
That's a
think-
good idea,
Yeah, I
actually.
think Commissioner Brio has her.
Well, we're coming this
sorry.
way.
Okay, yeah, we're going full circle, and it goes back over there at the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was interested in the pro-housing designation application as well, and sort of what are the benefits to the county if there's a number of grant programs? Are these grants can help developers pencil out their projects, or is it going to help find staff to manage that massive number of programs that we have? That if you look at the chart, we're sort of slipping a little bit on those as well, as far as completing them on schedule. So how does that pro-housing designation help the county, help the department here?
Well, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, it allows for the county to apply for more grants. Now, I don't know every single grant that's available from the federal level or the state level, in particular, because we, as a department, are not the ones applying for all of those grants.
Well, that's what I was asking, sort of how are those grants going to be
I'm not aware of all
used?
of that.
Doesn't it make us more competitive for grants that everybody can, all jurisdictions can apply for
Correct,
as well?
but
So there's two things, yeah.
Correct. But I'm not sure of the specifics of the grants. To Commissioner Levy's question, would that then allow for funding for additional staff? Would that then allow for funding for private developers to develop housing?
Right.
I don't know the intricacies of every single grant that's available to us.
You-
but
I'm
it just opens the door for more opportunity.
Oh, that's really interesting, where you sort of don't know the end, you don't know the end game, but you're just going to sort of do it anyway,
May I?
which makes sense.
Elizabeth Vissers, Lead Deputy County Counsel. My impression is that at least, I don't know about all of the grant funding, but my impression is that it would relate, at least in part, to funding that the Office of Supportive Housing could get for actually financing projects that the county Office of Supportive Housing
Good.
builds or finances, which is, again, something that we don't have that department before us today, but OSH does a lot of work
Yeah,
funding, building, developing projects itself, and I think the grants are, at least some of the grants would be related to that.
And if I may, through the chair, if it's the commission's desire to have the Office of Supportive Housing come and speak to the pro-housing and all of the grants that they're applying for, we could arrange that if that's the desire of the commission.
yeah, it sounds like a good idea to me. When I do look and see that, things are sort of slipping on both all those programs and on the number of units we're getting. I'm just wondering if there's sort of an issue we have with federal funding. Are we getting impacted at all by what's happening at the federal budget level? Is that impacting staffing levels and our ability to stay on track? I know it's not the case with the RENA numbers, but with the programs.
If I may, through the chair, for planning and development, it's not impacting our staffing. I can't speak to the Office of Supportive Housing. I can't. So like I said, if it's the desire of the commission, we can have the Office of Supportive Housing come and answer your questions relative to their staffing and how the federal government might be impacting them.
Okay. As a suggestion, next time this comes up to us, we may want to have somebody from Supportive Housing, Office of Supportive Housing here to answer these kind of questions. I think I'm good for right now.
Okay. Commissioner Brio.
I have a couple questions. One is, there was a statement about, a lot of the units are in county pockets. A lot of the sites in the inventory are in county pockets. And there was a statement about, well, when those get annexed and go into that jurisdiction, that there could be an issue with the county doesn't get credit for those units. But correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is that, for example, using Pleasant Hill Golf Course as an example, that the county would get credit for those units if the city of San Jose is not also claiming credit for those units, and that project is not in their site inventory. So I just try to understand, because basically, who's going to get credit for these units that become annexed into the corresponding jurisdiction?
I don't necessarily know the direct answer for that because the annexation process is a bit complex and not 100% certain.
Okay.
Because of course we could process an application, issue permits, but then the construction of that project could be annexed. So I don't know what would happen depending on when the annexation process starts and what agency would be the permitting agency that issue the permit. So I'm not 100% sure. We haven't encountered that situation yet.
Right, because I think, right. Well, it'd be a good thing to understand just because I think where it's going, from what I heard and my memory from a couple of years ago, is that, probably Pleasant Hill will be annexed into the city. That's likely. I wouldn't doubt that. But let's say it is annexed into the city of San Jose. Those units are not in their housing element, so they're not part of their site inventory. But if they decided they wanted to claim credit from HCD for those 2,500-ish units, then that would really impact the city in terms of it achieving its goal of building 3,500 units in its housing element. And then what are the implications from HCD upon the county for that? So it'd just be kind of an interesting, a good thing to figure out.
If I may, through the chair, I'm not going to speak to the city of San Jose, but what the county would like to do when we have properties that can be developed through our housing element is we would like to work with cities for a transfer agreement, which is the ideal situation for a county working with a city in general. That's an agreement where if they're going to annex in, they would give the county credit for that annexation. Ideally, that's where the county would like to be.
Okay.
And so I'm hoping that that's answering your question. I do want to go back to one thing, if through the chair, if
Sure.
I'm allowed. The annexation process with the city is a little different than what would happen when you annex and you go to LAFCO. There's a difference
Right.
there. The city has the ability, a city has the ability to say, we're going to annex, and then they notify the county. I'm not sure, and I would like to get clarification on this, that LAFCO has to agree. I'm not sure that process. When a developer asks LAFCO to annex or to consider an annexation application, that's different than the city just annexing a piece of property in.
Right, because the Pleasant Hill Golf Course situation is where it's within the city's sphere of influence.
That's right.
So it's a different process.
And I
It's a
know
different
LAFCO did
project.
have a huge push on island annexations to try and make that happen. So
Right.
I
Right.
can't see a scenario where they, even if they could, they would be against it, so, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of wanting, cross your bridge if you get to it, but it'd be good to understand, like, hopefully that will happen, right? And it probably will, because I know that the city of San Jose didn't put these sites that are in the county housing element in my former employer's site inventory. So it shouldn't be an issue, but there would be a concern if there isn't some kind of agreement there, and then the county's coming up short because, well, that was their inventory, but Palo Alto grabbed those units, or San Jose claimed them, and now, oh God, now we're in. So that's something to keep in mind. Another question I had is on the builder's remedies. So in San Jose, we also, I think, had 29 builder's remedy projects. And this didn't really come up because, they're all within our urban service area in urbanized San Jose. And essentially, the developer can kind of disregard the zoning code and disregard the general plan, and there's really not many ways that a council could deny them. Potentially, maybe, at least used to be, maybe the laws have changed on CEQA grounds. There could be an indirect way of doing that. But there is, if I can get my computer, the county's different in that some of these builders remedies projects are like out in the hinterlands. They're not, Andy's Orchard is a builder's remedy, I understand, but that's kind of wrapped around by Morgan Hill. But then you have this one that's up in the foothills. It's 36B Hagera Highland. And so what is the county's recourse for denying a project that it's up in up in the hills like that? I'm just curious because I'm
Yeah.
sure there's wildfire issues, there's water issues.
Just to be clear, all builders remedy projects are subject to state law requirements, and there
Okay.
are criteria specifically identified in state law for denial of a project. So
Okay.
we would still have to follow that, every single jurisdiction statewide. So that would be where it falls into.
So there is a little more latitude in maybe locations that are outside of an urban area than there would be, say, on West San Carlos, for example.
I
Because
wouldn't characterize it as more latitude.
Okay.
It's pretty narrow, the ways you can do it.
But things like environmental issues, you have to still do CEQA, wildfires.
Builders remedies are still
landslides,
subject to CEQA, yes.
Okay.
There are a handful, in particular, the builder's remedy that came before the commission qualified under AB 130, which is a streamlined process for housing projects, and it's an exemption from CEQA.
Right,
So
and that was on McKee
project-
Road.
That was on McKee, yes.
Right, and that's not very concerning just because it's within an urbanized area.
Correct. So if a project were to qualify for AB 130, then the CEQA process is exempted. But every other project would follow a standard CEQA process and the different levels of CEQA based on analyzed impacts or
Okay.
potential impacts,
So
just
if
like
you-
any other project.
If you're not exempt because you're not by transit and you're not necessarily doing affordable housing or none of those exemptions, and you have to do an EIR, the council, one approach, my understanding is the council could not agree to do an override on the project if an override is needed for environmental reasons.
If I may, through the chair, we're not at that phase on these projects. These projects are
Okay.
going through our process, and we have to be mindful that they're in that process of
Okay.
development. We're not going to speak to SB 330 applications with
Okay,
the
fair enough.
Planning Commission.
Sure, okay. And then the last question I had was about ADUs. So I guess the way it was before is ADUs were just kind of lumped in. I think it was moderate or above moderate.
They were moderate income.
Right. And then they're being split up in sort of in the different categories by, I forget what the formula is.
30, 30, 30, 10.
Yeah.
Yes, so 30%, very low, low, and then below moderate, and then 10%.
And so when
moderate,
all
yeah.
the ADUs, so if let's just say the county built 300 ADUs last year, they went to building permits. So the county gets credit for all those 300. So the HCD is not worried about like, well, of the 300 ADUs that got built, 100 are being occupied by households. The other 100 are just extra living space. The other are not being are used at all. So they don't really care ultimately how they're used. It's just that the fact that they got building permits. And this, I'm just trying to understand, because when we were at San Jose, this kind of came up, this issue. We were trying to think about, like, in the future, like, we were trying to understand, like, how many actually ADUs actually get occupied by people living in them. But that's not an issue for ACD, right? It's just building permits.
Again, to the question that was asked earlier, like tracking the number of people, one never knows truly
Okay.
unless we're being quite invasive as the government to track how many people are in a home, if they're occupied at any given point. The best we could do without going beyond the normal step of an agency or government in general is how many building permits are issued for said units,
Okay.
and where are the units located and so
Okay.
forth.
Well, and
So
that's to
what
the
it is.
jurisdiction and county's advantage, because not to go farther than that. All right, that's it.
I have another question.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Commissioner Levy, and then we're going to open it up for public comment. So if people are online and want to raise their hand, that would be the time.
Yeah, this is another question about, I know this is probably need Osh here to discuss it, but, you know, all the different programs that are being done for other jurisdictions. You mentioned a minute ago that there's, you know, there's a transfer, you know, ability to transfer from one jurisdiction to another, and the county is supporting a lot of housing developed in other jurisdictions. Is there any opportunity to use that? When it's our money that builds the housing in another jurisdiction, is there any way to get some credit from a marina perspective there?
Through the chair.
Sure.
We'll have to meet with Osh and find out what's actually being built and what you're asking. The transfer I was speaking to was relative to the RENA allocation.
Well, this
It
is what
was
I'm
not.
referring to. Well,
Yes,
somewhat.
I understand the relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I look in there and I go, well, you know, they're saying, here's the criteria. We want to build this many houses in this jurisdiction. We want to build this many houses here. And this is done with somewhat, I think, with county money and county support. Well, maybe we should get some credit for that.
Okay, we'll open up the public comment.
And we have no requests to speak.
We will close the public comment. Back to the commissioners. Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you for that report. I have a couple of comments. You guys have done a heck of a lot of work. I'm somewhat concerned about the numbers, but ultimately, and to Commissioner Levy's comment with the federal government, it does affect the overall county budget. And if the county budget were flush, then planning would probably get more of what they need. So I'll just leave it at that. But I do want to commend the county for the work that you guys are doing, because when I read that, I mean, it's just, you guys are all over the place doing all kinds of stuff, and I know you're limited. And so I just keep on the good fight. So I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I just want to
Mr.
commend
Brio.
staff too. I mean, I went through the housing and law process. It's pretty brutal and it's a lot of work. So good job. And I will say that with the Pleasant Hill Golf Course project, even though the numbers aren't very high now, that's an opportunity to really boost achieving the RENA number. Jurisdictions throughout the state of California are really struggling to get these units built. And so with Pleasant Hill, that I would actually get the county much farther along percentage-wise than a lot of other jurisdictions.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6, elect officers for fiscal year 2026 to 2027. I will start with a recommendation. I'd like to nominate Commissioner Cohen for chairperson. I'll make that a motion, and Commissioner Levy will second. Any comments on that? Are you amenable?
Only just to say thank you, and I am willing to serve, and I really appreciate learning from you in your leadership of this body, and look forward to the next phase of work that we're going to be doing together. So thank you.
Do I need public comment on this? Okay,
Yes.
we'll open the public comment.
And no requests to speak?
All right, we'll close the public comment. Any other commissioners wish to speak? Can we have a roll call vote?
Yes. Commissioner Brio?
Yes, aye.
Commissioner Heatherly?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Belska?
Yes.
Commissioner Levy?
Aye.
And Commissioner Rouser?
I approve.
Thank you,
Thank you. The
everyone.
motion carries.
Next, elect the vice chairperson. Do we have any nominations for vice chair? If not, I will nominate Commissioner Heatherly.
Second.
Do we have any comments? Do we have, we don't need to open public comment for this, do we? We pretty
It's
much
okay.
took
There's
care
no
of that.
request to speak.
Will you accept the nomination if we vote for you?
Yes, however.
Okay,
I
we'll have a roll call
encourage
vote. Thank
any
you.
others so inclined to speak up, I would happily defer to someone else. Okay.
It's vice chair. You can be a bodyguard to Commissioner Cohen so nothing happens to her. Roll call vote?
Commissioner Brio?
Yes.
Commissioner Heatherly?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Belska?
Yes.
Commissioner Levy?
Aye.
And Chairperson Rouser?
I approve. Okay, number 7. Well, congratulations, both of you. You will do very well. I have no report at this time. Any reports from commissioners? None. Report from county council? None. Planning Commission Secretary, number 10? None. Announcements and correspondence? Currently no vacancies, allegedly. I'd like to adjourn the meeting to the next meeting will be Thursday, August 27th, 2026 at 6 p.m. in these chambers at 70 West Heading Street, San Jose. No, no.